The flickering candlelight cast ghastly shadows around the room of dining residents, oblivious to the events to follow. The dinner table, decorated in a set fashion, comprised of plates, 2 large knives, 3 large forks, a soup spoon, and a water goblet set to the right of each plate. A woman adorning a tarnished gown with petite features served them freshly prepared dumplings with sauce. Thanking their server, the Turner family proceeded with their dinner, immersed in their confabulate. Margaret Turner, who had been out on an errand, upon returning home, discovered to her horror the members of her family to be sick, vomiting, and reeling with agony. The cook who had prepared the dumplings, herself having consumed them, had also become sick. In their effort to uncover the culprit and to the discomfort caused, they summoned the police, who arrested Eliza. Elizabeth Fenning, daughter to poor parents, had been in the profession of servitude since the age of 14. At 22, she was employed in the capacity of a cook at the Turners of 68 Chancery Lane, London, toward the end of January 1815. About 7 weeks from then, the unfortunate incident had occurred, and Eliza had been taken into police custody. On the 21st of March, Orlebar Turner, his son Robert Gregson Turner, and his daughter-in-law Charlotte fell ill because of their consumption of the devilish dumplings, as proclaimed by Mrs. Turner. Arsenic had been administered to them, having mixed it with the materials of the dumplings, and Eliza Fenning was suspected of the attempt at murder. The accumulated evidence of the investigators stated Eliza had asked and received leave for the preparation of the beefsteak dumplings, and had mixed arsenic in with the dough, which she had access to in her employer's office. The recorder inquired the Turners for their testimony and uncovered further theories about the poisoning. They learned of the half a penny's worth of milk that was used to make the sauce. However, Robert Gregson Turner, who had consumed no portion of the sauce, also fell ill, proving the allegations against Eliza. "Did you partake of any dumplings at dinner?" the recorder asked him. "Yes, I did." "And did you eat any of the sauce?" "Not any portion of that whatsoever." "Were you taken ill, sir?" "Soon after dinner I was, sir. I felt an inclination to be sick. I then felt a strong heat across my chest. I was extremely sick." "Did it produce any swelling in you?" "I was exactly as my father and wife were, except stronger symptoms. I had eaten a dumpling and a half. I suffered more than any person." "Were your symptoms and those of the others such as could be produced by poison?" "I should presume so, all taken in the same way and pretty near the same time." The court arrived at their decision after the testimony of John Marshall, a surgeon who had been sent for by Mr. Turner on the evening of the 21st of March. Mr. Marshall seemed thoroughly convinced of arsenic poisoning, which he deduced by executing a series of experiments on the dish used to make the dumplings with warm water and decanting it to discover deadly arsenic powder. The recorder addressed the jury, iterating the case of the Turners by claiming that it was Eliza who had administered the poison to them. When her facade had been removed, she had reasoned the milk to use to make the sauce, the flour, and the yeast of being the cause of the illness of her employer's family to prove her innocence. However, her giving no assistance to her master and mistress in their time of agony had proved her guilty. "Gentlemen, I have now stated all the facts as they have risen, and I leave the case in your hands, being fully persuaded that whatever your verdict may be, you will conscientiously discharge your duty both to your God and to your country." The jury proved Eliza guilty of the offense. On the 26th of June, the day appointed for her execution, she was allowed to visit her parents at about 1:30 on Tuesday, where she had only persisted in her innocence until the last minute. About 8:00, the sheriffs led her from the justice hall along the subterranean passage to the press yard. Fenning, clad in a white dress, lace boots, and a cap, appeared to be the image of peace, The sheriffs proceeded to the steps of the scaffold, and the Reverend Mr. Cotton inquired her of her last wishes. Eliza only spoke of her innocence, claiming not guilty of the crime she had been charged with. She spoke with firmness in her declaration. About 8:30, the fatal signal was given, and only one movement stirred in Eliza. The body was cut up and given to the family for interment. The following day, a photograph of Eliza Fenning appeared in the evening paper, demanding justice for the girl who had been wrongly executed with no offense. One of Eliza's supporters, a writer, John Watkins, had some doubts that the surgeon could not provide answers to. If rinsing the dish used for making the dumplings rendered them with half a teaspoonful of arsenic, then 4½ dumplings eaten by the Turners must have contained 1,800 grains of arsenic. At just 5 grains of arsenic were enough to destroy any human being. The quarter of a dumpling consumed by Charlotte was enough to kill 10 people, and 1½ eaten by her husband, enough for 120 people. But since none of them had died, it was only logical to conclude that arsenic had been sprinkled on the dough after mixing. Whether anyone entered the kitchen during the preparation of the dumplings was irrelevant. Watkins interrogated Marshall whether he had examined the pot used to boil the dumplings, or the water they were boiled in and the water used to mix the sauce, or the milk can, and it turned out that he had not. Robert Turner revealed to the court that the family knives and forks had been badly tarnished after the incident, and Marshall had been inquired whether arsenic could turn iron black, and he said yes. But he was wrong, as by then no obvious test for arsenic had been devised, and all the methods that had been discovered relied on partial results, with none of them being accurate. Eliza Fenning's funeral started from the house of her father on the 31st of June in Eagle Street in Red Lion Square, about 3:30, preceded by a dozen of law enforcement officers, followed by 30 more, the undertaker, and finally followed by the body of the deceased. The pall was supported by 6 young females dressed in white, followed by 8 males and females as chief mourners led by their parents. They were succeeded by hundreds of people, 2 and 2, and the entire cavalcade was closed by the peace officers. The rally proceeded in a regular fashion until it reached the burying ground of St. George and Marty's in Holborn. The number of people in and out of the churchyard was estimated to be about 10,000. The public believed Eliza's innocence, and the Turners and John Marshall became their hate figures. About a mob of 1,000 people gathered in front of the Turner house, threatening to burn it down. The police had to disperse the crowd and arrest 2 men. Occasionally, the Turners would get random visits from their neighbors, with an intention of doing mischief, so constables had to be stationed at their house until they gradually stopped coming. The cause of the illness of the Turners remains unknown to this day. However, rumors go around that Turner's son, Robert, and nephew had confessed to the court separately of having administered the poison. There are also stories that it might have been Charlotte who had mixed poison to frame Eliza, as she feared her husband was sleeping with her. Eliza Fenning's case was a catalyst that led to the advancement of forensic evidence in determining murder cases in London. Contemporary experts also analyzed that the evidence cast serious doubt on Eliza's alleged guilt.